All right, guys, we're going to do some 3D modeling here in this one, and taking a look at this little guy, and let's pick a piece of it to model, something that is really basic for you guys just getting used to modeling in Blender. And I'm going to give you a little tip here, though. Don't use Blender vanilla right now. I'm going to say it straight out. There's reasons why you don't want to. We're going to do this little antenna, okay? I think it's an antenna. I don't know what the heck it is, but we're going to do that, okay? Now, this is why you don't want to use vanilla Blender. We're going to create a cylinder. That's what that shape is. And we'll bring the image into Blender here. So I'm going to hold Alt, jump into a side view while orbiting. Create a image reference. I'm going to go ahead and I got to get that saved out real quick. Sorry. It's going to take just a sec, but I'm going to go to the desktop. Okay. Fresh. There we go. So we can bring it in. All right. So we can actually model off of that if we wanted to. But the thing is this is too bright. So we're going to go to the properties for it. Opacity, just drop it down. Hit Alt Z, we can turn on X-ray. Scale this down. Up here. In. And so we're going to be using a number of different add-ons I use regularly. This isn't really like a step-by-step necessary tutorial. Like it's kind of just a modeling demo. That's what this channel was supposed to be about when I try to model something. I just want to show you guys kind of how I do it. So it might help you out. So I press E to extrude and then S. You can scale down. You can see I'm getting the wrong sizes here. Sometimes it's better to hit I to inset, then hold Control and just push it down a little bit. Might be able to see a little bit better. Believe it or not, game objects, if that's what you're going for, having a slight taper to everything can be quite useful. And I press S and scale. So cylinders are real easy to work with because you can do these numbers like this. This is like a spring, more or less, going through the middle here. It's not really a screw thread. I think we're going to have a little bit of fun with that in a second. So I'm going to inset, hold Control, bring it. I'm going to push this in a little bit further. Inset, hold Control. Pull it back out if possible, which is not letting me for some reason. All right, so we'll just press S and scale it. Press E, extrude it down. All right. So pretty simple shape in theory. There's not a whole lot going on with it. Uh, there is a slight little roundness to the tip here. So I'm going to orbit out. Hit Shift or Control B. Got a little slight roundness here to the top. Mouse wheel up once. That's all we need. And we're going to do a loop cut. So we're going to hit Control R, loop cut. There's a slight little here that we need to model. Very easy. Control B to bevel it. Mouse wheel down. Inset. Very slightly. Hold Shift and hold Control. And that's all we need right there for that, for the most part. It probably wouldn't hurt to, say, grab this loop and then do select more here. Control number pad plus, right? Then do an inset. But when you inset, press O and do an outset. It's just going to give it a little bit of a holding edge here, which is nice. We shade this smooth or auto smooth. We'll get that result going on. Cool. Minor detail, but it looks a lot nicer that way if we follow that. And so it also happens to occur down here, and we didn't do them at the same time, so we're going to have to borrow this geo here and put it down there. So how would you do something like that? Well, first of all, if I could stop grouping things, that'd be great. Alt Z, select all of this stuff in the middle here. If you hit the Y key, it will rip a face. So it's still the same object, but it's just they're separated now. So I can hit S and Z, and I can do this number. All right, just scale it in. Just backing it off a little bit because I want to select these faces here. I can hit Shift D to duplicate, and then Z and just bring it on down. I want the same thing down here basically. We could make them all symmetrical, but it's really such a minor detail you can barely see it in the reference. So we'll put it down here as well. We're going to select by edge, hold Alt, and Alt Shift, Control E, bridge edge loops. We can do the same thing here. Control E, bridge edge loops. Now we can grab this one and we can Control X and dissolve it. Right? You can see how that worked out. Same thing up here. We're going to repair this. Control X, dissolve it. All right. So there we go. We have that done. Now you'll notice that I'm not using a bunch of booleans or ingons right now. If I have a theory on this, is that if you can subdivide something or sub-D model it, do it. You can see what I'm doing right now isn't really that complicated, but it's actually going to subdivide for the most part. Doing some bevels real quick. And might want to do some chamfers instead of bevels, but I'm going to do bevels on everything just because. You see how this is beveling? It's kind of weird. It's a good odd chance. The scale is off, first of all, but if I press Control A and apply scale, now the scale's not off. Let's see if that fixed that. And it really didn't. There might be a double here. Yeah, or they're not combined or something. So press A, M, merge by distance. I'll go like so. Second. Try this again. Control B, bevel. All right, now something I didn't mention in a lot of my other videos, if you've been following along, is that I say you should probably chamfer or bevel everything. Bevel everything, right? It's not entirely true or accurate. Sometimes in tight creased areas like this, it's actually good to use sharps here, even if you're baking. So you can actually mark something like that sharp. It's okay to leave it like that. You might have some shading issues with it, but you have to use Shade Auto Smooth and then use a sharp. When you subdivide something like that, it's going to do this number. And subsequently, when you're making a high poly or you're baking, your normals might flatten out in that area anyways if you do that. But if you mark sharp and you subdivide, that's going to happen, right? So subdividing, trying to say here is that subdividing it, right, you would need the edge. You would need a mark, or you need to actually bevel the edge. But if you're not subdividing it using Boolean Ingon workflow, you could just mark it sharp and leave it alone. What I'm trying to get at, it's kind of hard to say that. Huh? Bottom here, I'm going to press X and delete the face because I don't know what it does at the bottom yet, so I'm not going to model it. At the top here, ES, M, merge at center. And so you're probably thinking like, why? And this, I'm going to back up a little bit so it's off of it. But why can we do this with this giant end pole or E pole here? The reason is because it's flat. It'll still work out just fine right here because of that. That's flat, it'll work, trust me. If it wasn't a flat surface, you're going to run into that little weird kind of effect there. You would have to turn this into quads, so you would delete that. Grab here, Control F, and grid fill it. And then you could potentially work this out using like proportional editing. And so turn proportional edit on, press G, Z, mouse wheel down or up or whatever, so you can see this. And you might be able to get away with something like that. You notice that it's kind of hard to move only what we want. It starts taking off with the rest of the shape before we get that round surface we want. So here's the trick. Select more or less, control number pad plus minus, right? Select more, right to about, I'd say select all this, and then Shift H will hide the rest of the model. So if you select that center point, press G, Z, you can proportionally edit this, extend it however you need to extend it to get the shape you want. You hit Alt H, you'll see it's actually raised up, but none of the other mesh has been touched. It's not been modified. We can select it again, turn off proportional edit. We can move it back into place as needed if we wanted to do something like that. That's not something we're doing on this shape, but in edit mode, hit Alt H, bring it back. All right, so the big problem we're going to have is down here. Actually, it looks like it spirals a little bit. Okay, and because of that, it's kind of like a screw thread, but it's more bulgy. It's more like a spherical, right? And so that's actually a unique kind of challenge. I was going to show originally here in this video, I'm going to show how to use machine tools, right? When you do the add thread feature. This is the add-on for Blender. If I inset here, press I, right click, use machine tools, and use the add thread feature for machine tools. We can get a screw thread. And we can adjust this how we see fit, play around with the settings, how fast it tapers in or out, all that fun stuff. And do numbers like this, but you can see that's not quite right. And we could play with the other values here to try to mimic it a little bit more, perhaps. Like, and right there specifically, probably work out really well. Wasn't sure if that was going to happen with it, but it does seem to work out pretty well. So I don't know, maybe we'll go with that. I think the little fade here, though, more like that. Okay, the only problem with this is it creates a n-gon here at the end of it. Okay, and this can be quite troublesome, problematic to actually fix. So I'm going to shade smooth because we're going to subdivide this, right? If we don't already have it. Control 1 to subdivide, basically. For the most part, it's not a big deal. Like, it's not a huge issue that there's an n-gon there. But we might want to get rid of it. So we're going to turn this off in edit mode. Go into edit mode now. And, we got to turn these into quads somehow or another. And I think I'm going to slide this one up. Press K and pull that one through. Knife tool. Grab this edge, Control X to quick dissolve it. And I'm probably just going to pull this one to here. And this one I'm going to cut like this. Like that. So now, I gotta get rid of that extra vertex I misclicked, but we'll get this kind of result going. Okay. It's not great. It could be better, but I think for now, instead of fighting with the topo here, you can try like screw thread, for example, is a great subdivision topo study, but I think we'll just go with that for now. This one, on the other hand, I believe we don't do that same process. Because if we cut through here, we dissolve, we would end up pushing that up there, but then we have to do the little square here. A little bit weird to do that, right? Seems wrong. Might look okay. We'll try it real quick just to see what happens. Let's try it again. I misclicked again. You see that created a little triangle there. But that actually doesn't look too bad. It's not perfect, but it's actually a pretty nice little flow to it. Yeah, so let's see what else we can do maybe. Pull that up a little. Yeah, so we really didn't need to do that one there like that. Could have left that collapsed down. It does create a triangle here. It'll create like a little pinching point. But we push this one all the way up, end up in this situation where that's a quad, potentially. It's not a quad. Is it? No, it is a quad. It's a very weird quad. All right. So then, well, basically, you'd end up doing this number. Something like this anyways. I'm going to dissolve some of this stuff. It's distracting. So you can see, you can do a quad up here. Fortunately, we can't do the quad right here. But we could round that all the way through like that. That would also work. This is what I used to show in the videos. Sometimes this one will work out fine. It will look okay. We could have did it at the bottom as well, but sometimes I think this is like your best solution, personally. I'm telling you, there's like 12 or 13 different ways I found that you can do these threads at the end. I kind of want to do it down here as well. It seems like a good idea, but see, the topo is a little bit different down here. It doesn't work the same. This isn't really pleasant though, that little shape there. Let's push that down. Triangle. That weird triangle will still exist, unfortunately, but that will turn into a quad now. Okay. These ones we should be able to combine, but no guarantee there. Let's see that go forward. Push that forward. And yeah, so learning to work with quads can be quite useful because you can solve things quite a bit. What the reason why this little triangle quad thing exists is whenever you start a spiral, you're trying to redirect flow. And this is a redirection, basically. That's what it does. So, but it does mess up the topo a little bit. But either way, we have now mostly modeled this thing out. I think this bottom section, I want a little bit thicker, so I'm going to press S and Shift Z, do this number. Whenever you do something like that, usually you have to redo the edges here. Keep that in mind. I want that to be pretty tight. This one, I'm just going to drag down and scale out a little. Let's eyeball it. So it's going to look a little bit nicer. I think there's a slight chamfer to it as well. But it looks like this little piece also has some other little detail to it that I'm not sure exactly what's going on. I'm going to dissolve this, grab these two, bevel those. So we get that more chamfered like edge. But up here, it looks like it has a little indent. If I inset, and then inset again and hold control, and then inset again, we can get these little indents like this going on. I don't think that's the shape we need necessarily, but something similar to that. So it's really close to that. Let's do this first because we missed an edge here. Let's bevel this, right? So inset, inset, try this again. Inset again, hold control, push it in, add a loop cut here. And like that might be more appropriate. You can see they're barely there. They're barely, you can barely see them. The problem with where we just did it though, is when you look at a cylinder, when you're creating these things, usually you want to keep in mind that there's usually a bottom vertex, a top vertex, a left vertex, and a right vertex, or whatever. Left, if I can get my left and rights right. We can use that knowledge there, that little setup. That's usually the way you want to create a cylinder. Because we could take this here for a second and P separate it. Separate the selection. We're going to isolate it by hitting /. We're going to jump into the X view here. We should be able to grab a certain number of these, right? In this case, we're going to do this whole segment here, but in the middle will be that piece. So it'll only be these two segments then. Okay, so let's do this. Down on the side all the way through. Inset, inset, hold control, push it in, inset it again. Add the loop cut. Now we're back to what we had. Okay, I want this to be softer in the middle. I'm going to push these away from each other. Okay, you see it softens it in the middle a little bit. The edges stay a little sharper. Okay, I also want to add two loop cuts here, which tighten up the edges a little bit, which is nice. If we wanted to tighten up these edges here, we would need two loops going through the middle. I'm going to skip that for now. I don't mind it being a little bit rounded, but if you use more edges on a cylinder or more vertices on a cylinder, you can have those additional two edges go through there. Otherwise, you'll need an add-on called set flow, where you can do a loop cut like this. You'll see that flattens out the surface a little bit. Kind of weird. You have to right-click and use set flow add-on. You can sometimes correct that, but it doesn't even fix it all the time, right? Like it causes errors sometimes. So we're going to live with this one for now. Let's go ahead and cut out that section. Cursor selector, hit C. We're going to select these two. Okay. Probably should have turned Alt Z on when I did that, but I didn't. Z. We have just those two selections, those areas, okay? And so once that's done, I'm going to separate it again. This is all, for the most part, trash. The origin point should have been in the center, okay? And if you had it placed there, we haven't changed it. So um, if we do a Shift D, R, and then Z, we can rotate this. You see how we can't see the edges though? Okay. This is why I turn on wireframe with my mouse, because sometimes you need it, right? And so like if we didn't have it on, we Shift D, R, Z, and then we're like, oh, we need a wireframe. Well, uh, instead of going up there to click it every time, you can just quickly flick it on and Shift D, R, Z. And hold Control while doing this. You'll see we rotate, and this one just happens to be 45 degrees. Okay, so if I hit Shift R now, we can rebuild the whole shape. Right. We can select all of these, Control J, and it'll join to whichever random one. It doesn't matter to me. Forward slash unisolate. We can see it's still sitting here like so. Can actually join it to this one as well because they're using the same modifier. Nothing will get messed up. Or it's using the same settings for the modifiers. These are technically independent right now, I believe. So if you can see, I can change the one on this one. But when I join it to this one, it'll actually adopt whatever's over here. So if this was at 0, I shift select this, hit Control J, you'll see it adopts it, right? But now we can go into edit mode, press M, merge by distance. And now we have this going on. Right? So that's a really minor little detail that's easy to miss. Like you may not even see that in your reference. I accidentally skip it, but now you know how to do this kind of stuff. It's not really that hard. And Machine Tools makes this ridiculously simple for the most part. You may not get like perfect topo here at the end, but still, you can just scale those in maybe a little bit and tweak things. Try different different solves there for the end section there. But I think that one tends to work out pretty well for this one. All in all, we have made a antenna for the most part by the looks of it. I don't see anything else in the reference that I might have missed. There is some edge damage by the looks of it. And this little bottom section really isn't that pronounced down here. It's really, really faint. I don't even know if it actually exists. It might just be an illusion on the surface there, but let's say it didn't exist. Can I control it? Oh, can't control it like that. Let's try grabbing them. Alt middle click, Alt shift click. All these, Control X, right? If that didn't exist, what I would probably do, use these, S, Shift Z, I'd push them out a little bit, just to make the edge a little bit more interesting. Sometimes little things like that go a long way. You can't even see the detail right now. It's too small, right? It's a little bit exaggerated, perhaps. So when you're back here, it's just that little extra bit of lighting on it that makes it look a little bit nicer. Right, that's a pretty interesting little detail to add. Also, I'll probably pull this one up so it's a little bit more pronounced. Right, from further away. Right, and so this is basically the same thing over here. When you model something kind of knowingly, like what you're doing, you can model other things based off of that. Same mesh, right? Obviously, right? So if I push this one over here, and I'm going to turn on wireframe real quick. Oh, that didn't help. I thought it would be easier to see it. We can see it's more or less the same thing. It's actually pulled forward a little bit, but we can just line up some of these kind of areas real quick. This is the base here. Top's up there. So let's take this top section here. This doesn't have that little section in it, first of all. So it does not have this. Get rid of it. Okay. Got it mostly lined up. We're good. Okay. Most of that looks good as well. It doesn't appear to be much thinner. This doesn't seem to exist either right through here. This little lip on the bottom still exists. You can probably grab all that. It's kind of hard to get that selection, but you can delete the vertices. Grab here. Oh, actually grab here. EZ. The value here on Z, we can grab it, copy it, Control C over a field. When you select this one, you can just press Control V. Should paste it so they're the same values now. Bridge edge loops again. This comes down further. That. It is a little bit thinner, which we're going to get to here in a sec, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same thing, right? Not too much editing here involved. That'll save you some time. Have variations of things like this. The only thing here is though, we're gonna press 2, select by edges, Alt Shift click this one. Oh, let's do faces. Press 3, Alt Shift click here. We're gonna press S and Shift Z so we can scale it in like that, right? So it doesn't change the height. So S and Shift Z. That going on, cool. And we gotta find where we're gonna do these cuts. We're gonna do one here, do one here. Okay. Grab the middle faces. We're going to press inset and hold control. That's all we're doing. There we go. So I to inset, right? I don't know how new all of you guys are that watch my videos, but this wasn't really supposed to be like a new beginner channel. It's supposed to be for guys trying to get into like freelancing and working more efficiently and effectively. Knowledge on how to do proper game modeling. Sub D, like I was saying earlier, if you get a chance to do it, and don't even think about it. Like it's fun using booleans and ngons and having non-destructive workflows, but sometimes when it comes to game modeling, in my opinion, sub D may be slowed to model something extremely complicated, but when you can do shapes like this in sub D, there's no reason not to. I mean, they're kind of simple, so. And you don't have to worry about resolutions and stuff. I'm trying to get this to line up. I'm re-grid filling it basically. So that it's more like this, because this other one has that same problem. Alt Q, we can jump to it instead of leaving it edit mode. X delete, Control F grid fill, bump around spacing here. So there we go. We now have modeled a couple hard surface shapes. Are they good? I don't think I did this one quite. Oh, I did. Okay. This one is going to need holding edges. So I'm just going to put a loop cut in the middle and bevel it out like this. Okay. You can see how they're farther pulling in. Sometimes when you're sub D modeling, you have to add just additional little elements to hold the topology better, right? So like right here, for example, maybe a couple in there would help it. Same could be said over here. There's a couple in here, maybe. Heard it. Probably down here at the bottom wouldn't hurt. Maybe one there, I guess. Two in there. That's just something I would do at the end. I wouldn't do it necessarily right away unless I absolutely had to, because it was deforming something too much. But you can see we have two very solid models now. We want to save these somewhere, so I'll just say this is antennas. Not exactly. I know they're antennas, but I don't know what they. This might be like a satellite antenna. I don't know. I don't know what they do, like which bands or bandwidths or anything. I've seen something similar to this. I don't know if I'm even allowed to talk about it, but yeah, I remember I was in the military at one time, and yeah, so I've seen this type of structure before. I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but I don't know why this little guy would have that on there. I think, but I don't know. It could just be a regular RF radio frequency antenna or something, right? So, anyways, yeah. So we're done with this one. And so the rest, basically, I'm going to start doing more little videos like this on the channel. This is what I wanted to do originally. Whenever I just approach something and I'm modeling it, I wanted to show you guys kind of like how I go through it. So you can kind of see the process there, whether it's subdivision or Boolean n-gons or whatever the case. You know, you can do whatever you know, work however you want, but something like this, I think subd works really well on. I mean, they're simple, they're fast, and you get these really stellar results that you can up res and down res. But some of these things in here with these little indents and stuff, like you can subd model this, but it becomes kind of a runaway train sometimes. And Boolean n-gon workflow on this is fantastic. So, and then if you really wanted to subd it, you could, I guess. Anyways, so that's it for this video, guys. I will check you out in the next one. All right, take care.